Okay, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us for our Managed File Transfer Solutions Worth the Investment with our speakers today, Alan Goode and Dan Freeman. I'm Andrew Tewksbury, and I'll be your host and mediator for today. A few housekeeping notes. You can use the chat functionality down on the lower right-hand side there should you run into any issues with audio, or if you have any questions. We will be doing a Q&A at the end, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. Today we're going to cover off on a few points. We should be running close to about 45 minutes to get you back to your day. The few things we're going to touch on is how file and data transfers cost money, key cost-effective features of MFT, how much security costs, the ROI of GoAnywhere MFT, how GoAnywhere MFT saves time and money, and like I mentioned, we will have time at the end for some questions and answers and next steps. Today our speakers are Alan Goode and Dan Freeman. Alan Goode is the founder and managing director of Goode Intelligence. He is a respected expert in information security and mobile security and has written a number of publications on these subjects. Alan has been a judge for the GSMA Global Mobile Awards since 2012. Prior to setting up Goode Intelligence, Alan spent over 20 years in business where he held positions for organizations including T-Mobile UK, De La Rue, Motorola, Citibank, and Atos Origin. Dan Freeman is a senior solutions consultant here at Help Systems. As a certified information systems security professional, Dan has held a number of IT management and security positions where he's been responsible for creating and implementing security and compliance programs and policies. So without further ado, I will pass over the control to Alan and let him get started. There you go, Alan.
Thank you, Andrew, and good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Alan Goode, and I'm the founder of Goode Intelligence, and we are an international information security analyst and consulting company who have been commissioned by Lenovo Software to develop a study that investigates the financial benefits of using Lenovo's GoAnywhere managed file transfer product. Today, I'm using the contents of this study, which will be published very shortly, to answer the question, are managed file transfer solutions worth the investment? As I mentioned, the webinar is based largely on content from this study, which is shortly to be published. The study provides quantifiable financial reasons and non-financial reasons for using GoAnywhere managed file transfer. To provide you with some context for this webinar, I would like to introduce you to a few key trends that are shaping secure file transfer solutions. Firstly, organizations are exchanging more data than ever, and this includes sharing files daily with trade partners, vendors, customers, and other businesses. Secondly, security, compliance, and reliability needs have sparked awareness of the high cost to organizations that don't have a secure and efficient way to handle such tasks. And compliance to regulation including HIPAA, PCI DSS, FISMA, and EU's GDPR mean that organizations have to ensure that business-sensitive files must be protected against eavesdropping and tampering. If an organization is found wanting in not being compliant with regulation, then it will suffer significant financial penalties. With the EU's GDPR, that could be 2% of a company's or organization's annual revenue. One of the most attractive aspects of using a managed file transfer solution is the quick and hard return on investment. Let's get into the study now and look at the methodology, how we came by the numbers, how we developed the report. It's very much a data-led study using information obtained from a number of sources, including interviews with GoAnywhere MFT users, our own research, and information directly obtained from Lenovo Software. And using this information, we created a financial benefits model based on a typical organization, using information gathered from these interviews and the review. Now let's have a look at the typical organization, or what we kind of define a typical organization to be. We've created a typical organization that really forms the basis for the financial benefits study. And the organization has characteristics, shares many characteristics of many GoAnywhere MFT users, and it's been generated using the information provided by Lenovo software and directly from the customer interviews. So the characteristics of our typical organization, it's a medium to large size organization based primarily in the USA. It has multiple physical sites and multiple trading partners and suppliers. It has to aid in compliance with a number of industry and federal regulations. So it's involved in a relatively high level of industry and federal regulation that relate to the storage and transmission of data. And as I've mentioned, key ones are HIPAA, PCI DSS, GDPR, and FISMA. It uses MFT for the transmission of sensitive data, including financial and personal information. And it transmits thousands of secure file transfers daily, both internally and externally. External partners and suppliers use a mixture of file transfer systems, including transfers to FTP servers and solutions from competitor MFT products running on a mixture of platforms, operating systems, including legacy mainframe, Unix, and Windows-based systems. It also may be using script-based FTP solutions for internal and external file transfers that require a lot of manual intervention. There was so much valuable information obtained during the interview stage of our research that we decided to create a case study derived from one of the interviews carried out earlier this year. So what I'm going to do now is to walk through the case study, walk through the main points from the interview that we've turned into a case study, and some very good points here. And I think they're very key in terms of some of the decision processes behind choosing a managed file transfer solution. So the company that we interviewed and the company that we are basing this case study on is a healthcare company. It has multiple physical sites, and the organization was using a freeware version of a popular FTP client and server solution that had, according to its manager, become a liability. And we'll go into why it was a liability a little bit further on. The liabilities include the file transfer system was taking too much time to manage and operate and was unreliable with frequent failures for time-sensitive file transfers. The system also required a lot of manual intervention and constant monitoring. The setup and management tasks performed by expensive, technically adept resources. And these resources were developers mainly, the people who could code. It was also inefficient in its use of system resources with heavy utilization of CPU time. So that's the kind of what they had. They had a problem, needed solving. They developed some requirements that they needed, that they wanted to move ahead or to move forward with a file transfer solution. So these are the key requirements. So they included regulation, meetings, because they were a healthcare company, meeting HIPAA regulations, and including support for FIPS 140 level 2 encryption. It needed to support a legacy network environment. A lot of organizations, their infrastructure, it can be legacy-based, and in this case, they were using Novell. Although the company was moving away from this technology, it was still key to them that they needed to support Novell. They needed enterprise-level file transfer, which is meaning supporting the support for automation and managing thousands of daily file transfers. Customer support needed to be available within core business hours. And they needed specifically for this client, they need support for transfer pools from OpenVMS. And this was a critical requirement for the company. So I'm sure that the audience today may have their own legacy solutions and their own specific requirements that must be met. To meet these criteria, the organization investigated alternative file transfer solutions and made a request to a number of service providers for assistance in running a proof of concept. And Lenovo were one of the companies that were very proactive in reaching out to this company to providing the support to run a proof of concept. So after the POC and after it being successful and the criteria being met, the company decided to deploy GoAnywhere MFT. And very, very quickly, they saw tangible cost and operational benefits. And these included, it removed the need for manual intervention for managing file transfers and restarting failed transfers. This saved valuable time, allowing resources to be assigned to other duties. Time and cost benefits, and that a file transfer that used to take many hours now takes 3 to 5 minutes to complete. That's a sizable difference. Reduction in support calls compared to previous solution. The GoAnywhere MFT product is efficient and rarely needs intervention from the organization's support team. The organization has estimated saving 7 hours per week on support calls. That's over a day. This has had a direct positive effect on help desk work, with a reduction in time spent on troubleshooting file transfer problems. And also the reduction in system resources, as the previous solution, as I mentioned, was CPU intensive and batch orientated, leading to additional strain on the system resources. Another point is, and they saw an increase in the number of client processes and file transfers that can be supported in a single day. GoAnywhere is supporting 850 client processes per day, which equates to 1,400 file transmissions per day versus 250 client processes per day for the previous solution. And I think benefits and improvements in support. Support for GoAnywhere product is greatly improved versus the previous product. And this is when it's needed, because the company, the resource that I spoke to, they're seeing few incidents to actually call Lenovo for support. So it's a reliable product. So if I move on to the financial benefit study itself and looking at some of the numbers that we generated as a result of speaking to these clients and speaking to Lenovo, we've calculated that over a 3-year period, in these cost savings in moving to Lenovo Software's GoAnywhere Managed File Transfer product. Over a 3-year period, a typical organization could save $3.9 million. They could also save $3 million from managed file transfer tasks. A further, or within that $3.9 million, another $139,000 cost savings from reduction in help desk and support calls, and from the use of less expensive staff, cheaper staff, $703,000 savings, moving from using development staff to moving to operational and IT admin resources. Moving on, there are significant cost savings to be made from moving to an easy-to-operate file transfer system that requires less specialist user intervention, is stable, and can easily scale to support additional file transfer processes. Our typical organization immediately benefits from migrating to GoAnywhere, with cost savings in the first year of operation of around $966,000. And over a 3-year period, the cost savings of creating and maintaining managed file transfer processes are over $3 million. In terms of the cost savings seen from technical support, these can be very dramatic. Our interviews with clients of GoAnywhere MFT prove that substantial savings are common as a result of moving away from inefficient file transfer solutions. And our calculations, we calculated over a 3-year period that a typical organization can save almost $139,000 when moving to GoAnywhere MFT. This is not only the cost savings from reduction in technical support calls, but combines the cost of downtime for the business. So actual business cost savings equate to just over $74,000 over the 3-year period. So moving on to another area that we use to calculate the cost-benefit savings. If we're looking at the cost savings from the use of non-expert staff. It's extremely inefficient to utilize skilled resources to manage and maintain a function that should be managed by operational or admin staff. This situation is being repeated around the world by organizations that rely on engineering staff to create and maintain file transfer scripts. Based on our typical organization, savings of $703,000 can be made over a 3-year period for using non-expert staff to manage file transfer duties. So if we look at the total financial benefits, so this is the combination of the 3 main areas that we've just covered, we can determine the total financial benefit of moving to GoAnywhere MFT and also work out the return on investment. A combination of simplifying the managed file transfer process, engineering staff, and the cost savings tasks lead to a period. Over 3.9 million typical organization as a result of deploying Lenovo Software's GoAnywhere MFT. And this has an impact on the ROI, the return on investment. We see some very impressive figures here. So based on the financial figures from the cost-benefit analysis and the cost sections, we have calculated the ROI for a typical organization that is replacing an existing resource-intensive, highly manual file transfer system with Lenovo Software's GoAnywhere MFT product. And the combination of low license costs and high financial benefits result in an outstanding ROI calculation when and if organizations decide to migrate to GoAnywhere MFT. Based on our typical organization, a very early payback can be achieved and an ROI calculation of 9,110%. So if we look at the non-financial benefits, these are the ones that are perhaps a little more difficult to quantify, but they are still very important. And if we're talking RFPs for managed file transfer solutions, these 3 areas are often on them. So there are many non-financial benefits. And the majority of these benefits have been communicated to us by the users, the people, the clients out there, the users who are actually using MFT at the moment. So what we see, non-financial benefits including complying with regulation, being secure and supporting a risk management framework, and operational efficiencies for both the end user, the support staff, and initially in installing, implementing, and working through the workflow. So if we look at the end user side, what is very noticeable from the interviews carried out is the stark difference between managing file transfers with the old solution compared to using GoAnywhere MFT. Users have detailed how the previous systems have become a liability and unreliable with frequent file transfer failures. Contrast that to the positive messages coming from GoAnywhere MFT end user community during a proof of concept when an end user in the healthcare industry was comparing a number of managed file transfer solutions. The ease of use and efficiency of GoAnywhere MFT was superior to other solutions that were evaluated as part of the proof of concept. For support staff, calls to technical support teams dramatically drop when GoAnywhere MFT is deployed. And one user, as we've seen, has seen a 7-hour reduction in support calls per week. This is a double-edged benefit as there are efficiencies for the team running the file transfers and also for the technical team supporting the file transfer system that can be reassigned to other support duties. We take a look at the installation, implementation, and workflow. According to end users that we interviewed, installation, implementation, and workflow tasks are simple to perform with the MFT solution and can normally be carried out by the end user without recourse to Lenovo support or engineering staff. So out of the box, easy to use, easy to operate. We look at regulatory compliance. Many organizations must be compliant. They must be compliant with regulations, both federal and industry related. This is an important benefit for the organizations using GoAnywhere MFT. And organizations operating in healthcare, financial services industries can benefit from the knowledge that GoAnywhere helps meet requirements with HIPAA, PCI DSS, FISMA, and EU GDPR, and other compliance standards. This fact is an important factor for these organizations in choosing GoAnywhere products. Security and risk. In addition to compliance with regulation, organizations must ensure that they deploy technology that meets company security and risk policies. GoAnywhere has built-in security controls that ensure that the data transmitted is protected by strong encryption protocols that adhere to U.S. government standards, including NIST FIPS 142 cryptographic standards. For one organization, the ability to support OpenPGP encryption within the application, allowing them to seamlessly encrypt and decrypt data, was a key reason for choosing GoAnywhere MFT. So in summary, during this webinar, I have demonstrated the quantifiable financial reasons for using GoAnywhere Managed File Transfer, and has provided you, the audience, with an understanding of non-financial benefits of using GoAnywhere MFT. Based on a typical organization, we have calculated that over a 3-year period, almost $3.9 million can be saved as a result of deploying GoAnywhere MFT. The cost savings, calculated using data obtained from interviewing active users of GoAnywhere, are a result of moving away from inefficient, largely manual-based file transfer solutions to an efficient, automated, and scalable file transfer platform. Cost savings are also directly related to a reduction in support, help desk-related tasks, and staffing cost reduction from the use of non-expert, less expensive staff. In addition to the tangible cost benefits savings outlined in the study, the high ROI can be attributed to the affordability of the GoAnywhere MFT solution in comparison to manual file transfer and other competitor solutions. Organizations must move away from costly manual file transfer processes, as they are at risk of being non-compliant with a number of industry and federal regulations that we have mentioned earlier on. Linked to regulatory compliance is the ability to protect file transfers, with strong encryption that not only meets regulation, but significantly lowers the risk and cost involved in a data breach. And on that subject, in the recent Ponemon Institute study on the cost of data breach study for the US, published last month in June, the average total cost of data breaches experienced by organizations over the past year has increased from just over $7 million to $7.35 million. Based on the findings of the study, we believe that GoAnywhere MFT is a low-risk and affordable solution to ensure organizations stay compliant with the regulations and maintain an easy-to-use and secure method of exchanging files with business partners and remote office locations. So thank you for listening to my part of the presentation. I would now like to hand over back to the Lenomo team for the next part of this presentation.
Thank you, Alan. That was very informative. I'm now going to pass control over to Dan Freeman from Lenomo, and he'll take a deeper dive into GoAnywhere and a few other important areas when considering a solution. There you go, Dan.
All right, thanks, Andrew. And big thanks to Alan for all the research and detailed information he just shared. That was some awesome intel. Appreciate that. All right, I'd like to continue with a brief look at the 3 main tenets of information security, give a quick summary of the main regulations that govern data security in both the US and Europe, and the potential fines that can be applied if ignored. Then let's move into some of the common security pitfalls and inefficiencies of legacy solutions and how GoAnywhere can solve these problems. But first, let's take this opportunity to give a quick introduction and share a little background on Lenomo Software. Lenomo Software is based in good old Nebraska and has been in business for just a little over 20 years. We have made the Inc. 5000 list as one of the fastest growing private companies for the last 4 years in a row. We have a very active research and development group which focuses on developing managed file transfer and security products for commercial and government users. I think it's worth noting we are very proud that almost 99% of customers renew maintenance contracts each year. We believe this is because of our exceptional support and easy-to-use, efficient software. Lenomo is a division of Health Systems, which has over 500 employees and 10,000 customers around the world. And as a member of the PCI Security Council, we do keep up to date with the latest standards and ensure our products stay compliant. Speaking of compliance, when talking about information security, we tend to gravitate to the CIA. And no, I'm not talking about the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, but rather the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of your data. These three tenets act as a reference to guide policies and procedures for an overall comprehensive information security program. Confidentiality is our information access control. Whether providing end-user training to help prevent sensitive information from reaching the wrong hands, or adding technical controls such as encryption and hashing to keep user credentials safe. Integrity is ensuring the accuracy of data throughout its entire life cycle, basically checking to make sure that no unauthorized changes are being made to the data from its original state. Having secure and reliable backups, version control, and file auditing software are all ways to help prevent and ensure we keep the integrity of all information. And finally, availability is making sure the data is available to all authorized users. Now, rigorous maintenance of all hardware and infrastructure, high availability systems through clustering and other distributed models, and testing emergency disaster recovery solutions are all ways to ensure the correct availability of your data. Now, making sure that we are practicing due diligence on data protection across all these three aforementioned CIA tenets will help ensure a good foundation for an information security program. And one of the ways we measure our due diligence is by those self-assessments and sometimes, those dreaded third-party audits of our systems. In the next slide, we'll introduce some of the major regulations driven by industry, government acts, directives, and sometimes even law. Now, introduced in 1996, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act requires the Health and Human Services Department to develop regulations protecting the privacy and security of individually identifiable health information or protected health information, PHI. These regulations are designed to protect the CIA of electronic PHI through administrative, physical, and technical safeguards. Now, penalties, depending on the type and cause of noncompliance, may warrant a fine from $100 up to $50,000 for each violation. Moving on to PCI DSS, or the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standards, these were developed for its companies responsible for processing and holding debit and credit card payment information. These standards require organizations to protect the privacy of customer account data. Like most regulations, failure to meet these standards can result in fines or even the termination of the ability to conduct work. In fact, the consequences of being not compliant range from $5,000 to $500,000 levied by the banks and credit card institutions. Now, although PCI DSS was designed for the financial industry, its 12 detailed security areas consist of over 200 controls and tests that provide for a comprehensive approach to developing an organizational-wide security regardless of the industry. In fact, GoAnywhere has a security audit report that checks your configuration against some of these PCI DSS controls, which we'll take a look at in a little bit. The Federal Information Security Management Act, or FISMA, of 2002 requires each federal agency to develop, document, and implement an agency-wide security program to protect federal information and the supporting information systems. As a key element of FISMA, the National Institute of Standards and Technology was called upon to develop a risk management framework approach that laid out security and privacy standards and guidelines to promote comprehensive risk-based security programs. Noncompliance will render federal contract work revoked or lack of federal funding. And finally, the GDPR, or General Data Protection Regulation, is set to replace the current Data Protection Directive. It is designated to consolidate data privacy laws within Europe, protect EU citizens' privacy, and to empower them as stewards of their own personal information. This regulation is set to go live May 25th, 2018, and does not only include those companies based in the EU, but extends to all foreign companies doing business involving EU residents' personal information. Now, noncompliance of GDPR regulations can render up to 20 million euros or 4% of annual global revenue, whichever is greater. I think that goes without saying, these can be pretty serious and impactful fines. And kind of like what Alan mentioned, according to that Panama Institute 2017 cost of data breach study, we've got about 7.35 million reasons to make sure we do maintain compliance. Now, these are just a few of the reasons that we must ensure the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of our data. Non-compliance can definitely put you out of work or suffer substantial fines. Now here, we have some of the common security and risk issues from legacy systems and processes that can leave you vulnerable to the aforementioned regulations and non-compliance penalties, as well as inefficiencies. A lot of IT departments are using older technology and a variety of legacy tools to transmit files. Many companies do not have good error alerts when transfers fail. Some have to even wait for their trading partners to call to indicate they did not receive the file. To add to these challenges, many end users are still sending files through unsecured email or cloud services like Dropbox without any controls or centralized management. Now, your organization may still be using PC-based tools to transfer files. And since this is often a manual process, it's very prone to human error and great risk. What if the user downloads or uploads the wrong file? Or what if that file contains sensitive data and the user forgot to encrypt it before sending it out? And who's going to run those transfers or processes when that primary user is gone for the day or perhaps the week? While many file transfer tools, there are often no logs of where the files were sent. This is becoming a real issue with auditors since many organizations cannot tell them what sensitive files are leaving the network. Because of all these vulnerabilities, it has become very difficult to meet strict compliance requirements using traditional file transfer tools and manual processes. Now, in order to automate some files, some companies have built FTP scripts on their systems. However, these scripts have many downfalls. For instance, FTP scripts more than likely can only be written by programmers, which can be an expensive resource. Anytime something changes with that trading partner, such as maybe a new IP address, password, file name, the programmer may have to get involved to make those changes. And these costs can really add up over time and distract from other priority projects. Another huge problem with scripts is that your trading partner's passwords are often stored in clear text, which can make these very vulnerable to attacks. Now, many scripts are very basic in nature, and we're not programmed to have advanced file transfer capabilities like auto retry, alerting for failures, and audit trails, which is why a lot of organizations have been looking for alternatives to this legacy approach. And this is where GoAnywhere can really shine for organizations. A good MFT solution provides an avenue to efficiently control and secure their file transfers through a centralized framework. It must provide approved security features, granular access control, as well as auditing accountability, all while being easy to use to take advantage of the ROI that Alan talked about just a few minutes ago. Now here, let's look at some of the security features provided within GoAnywhere to ensure properly secured data both in transit and at rest. For the secure transmission, GoAnywhere provides multiple ways to transmit your data to your partners and customers. We have a few flavors of FTP, whether it's going to be your SFTP or your FTP over SSH, or your FTPS, the FTP over SSL TLS, leveraging the SSL certificates. And these are going to be with the latest cipher suites and algorithms provided by RSA. We do have HTTPS connections for securely transmitting data over a web interface, including secure encrypted email functionality. Now also, being a Drummond certified product, we can also leverage the efficient and secure AS2 protocol to push and pull documents. AS2 has gained a lot of popularity not only because of its inherent secure transmission, but also because of non-repudiation and legal transaction status. Leveraging SSL certificates for transmission, digital signatures, and MDN receipts, an AS2 transmission is recognized as a legal transaction between two entities. Now, these are very popular with companies sending and receiving purchase orders and invoicing, but can be used for any type of file transfer. Now, GoAnywhere does have a built-in full-featured key manager for PGP and SSH keys, as well as the SSL certificate manager. This allows for open PGP file-level encryption and decryption automated tasks, leveraging SFTP for dual authentication options using those SSH keys, usernames, and passwords, as well as protecting any web traffic using HTTPS protocol and SSL certificates. This centralized key management is good for automated workflow as well as auditing and alerting on key expiration to avoid any service outage. Now, for your data at rest needs, GoAnywhere does have the ability to encrypt targeted folders with FIPS 140-2 validated AES 256-bit encryption. It is essential to have sensitive data encrypted at rest, not only to protect your data or proprietary information from getting into the wrong hands, but even in the event of a data breach, encryption at rest can prove enough due diligence to help avoid those costly fines we mentioned earlier. Now, securing our data is key, but being able to track that data is just as important. GoAnywhere provides and keeps detailed audit logs of all system, file, administrator, and end user activity. Everything that happens with GoAnywhere will be accounted for and audited. Access control, as well as auditing and accountability, are two huge security controls seen throughout most of the common regulations. Auditors want to know if you are controlling the access to your data and what is happening with it once it is actually granted. Now, logging is great, but you must have a solution that provides granular and easy searching capabilities as well as automated alerting. And GoAnywhere provides a nice GUI with detailed fields that can be searched and filtered on any of those fields suggested. GoAnywhere also has the capability to configure logs settings to comply with mandated retention policies, whether you keep them within the system or have an automated archiving project to move files after a given amount of time, or even push GoAnywhere logs off to a syslog server for centralized management of all your system audit logs. Now, all these detailed logs are great for reporting, and one of those reports we talked about is going to be that system security settings audit report. Now, this analyzes 75 security settings within GoAnywhere and stacks them up against PCI DSS security controls. Now, for each setting, you'll receive either a status of pass, fail, or warning. Pass means your configuration is good to go from a security perspective. Fail or warning means that your configuration setting does not comply, or that we may need to do some further resource as other dependencies may be at play. In either case, we'll provide you with recommended mitigation steps so that you can evaluate and change if desired. This is a really nice ad hoc report to give a quick snapshot of your GoAnywhere setup from a security perspective, and not bad to be able to provide an auditor as well. And finally, our MFT solution must be easy to use. This may be one of the most important features to drive appropriate user and administrative adoption and use. As we all probably know, shelfware is not a good investment. But if the product is designed intuitively, it can free up a lot of expensive development resources as well as support for clunky legacy applications and solutions. And GoAnywhere makes automation easy. At the heart of GoAnywhere and any MFT solution is the workflow automation. GoAnywhere has a very intuitive, easy-to-follow logic on creating workflow projects. There's no need for experienced, expensive programmers to develop automation, just some planning on what needs to be done and a little step-by-step logic building, and anyone can provide data automation in minutes. Now, what we're looking at here on the screen is the Project Designer window where projects or your workflow automations are created. As you can see, it's a nice, clean GUI interface that allows for drag and drop functionality. On the left, we do have over 100 unique tasks within the component library to choose from. Now, these are going to be your action items that drive the project. Once you select your action, you can simply drag it into the project window to form a sequential, step-by-step logical progression of how you want your project to run. Each task has configurable attributes that are defined to specify exactly what it is that you want done, as well as a multitude of system, user, and task-created variables to leverage throughout your project. Now, this particular project here, if you can see it, is gathering information from a customer database using a simple SQL query, taking those results, writing them out to an Excel file. Then, by using the PGP encrypt task and the built-in PGP key manager, we are encrypting the file with one of our partners' public PGP keys and turning right around and sending them off to said partner via SFTP. Now, finally, after doing so, we're sending off an email confirmation to selected users. Now, if there happens to be errors within that project, within any of the sequential action item tasks, then we're going to send off a different email to an administrator notifying of such failure. Now, for convenience, we can attach the job log by using the system.job.log variable as an attachment to the email. This will allow appropriate administrator access to the job log without actually having to log into the system. So, as you can see from this simple example, it doesn't take a skilled programmer to come up with some common workflow automation. You may have also noticed that this isn't just moving files. We're doing data manipulation, encryption, connecting up to SFTP servers, receiving information, and sending those files off. All just some of the actions that can be performed within a GoAnywhere project. In fact, there are about 40 common projects defined as templates built right into the system right out of the box. This helps get an idea of not only some of the common automated tasks that are out there, but also look at logic of how projects are built. Transitioning these manual, unsecure, and inefficient tasks into automated projects within GoAnywhere is not only simple to do, it is well worth the investment. And what we've talked about today just scratches the surface on the capabilities of ways GoAnywhere can make secure and reliable automation work for you. Now, if you want to see more, give us a call or go online to schedule a personal demo and see how GoAnywhere can work for you. Andrew?
Perfect. Thank you, Dan. That was excellent. And a special thank you again to Alan Goode and Goode Intelligence and his team. For more information about Goode Intelligence, you can visit their website at www.goodeintelligence.com. This concludes the main portion of our presentation. We will open it up here for a few minutes to do any questions and answers. I had a couple come through throughout the presentation that we'll start with. But as a reminder, you can use the chat functionality down the lower right to submit those, and we'll triage as many as we can. So the first one, I believe, Dan, I'm going to let you handle this, came in when you were talking on the compliance section, more regarding on HIPAA compliance, around if can GoAnywhere make me or my organization HIPAA compliant?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a wide open question though. HIPAA is definitely a comprehensive security program to become HIPAA compliant. As mentioned, you do have technical, administrative, as well as physical controls. Now, GoAnywhere can definitely provide the approved protocols, algorithms, and ciphers, like things, encryption for data in transit and at rest, access control, audit and accountability, all examples of how GoAnywhere can help meet the technical safeguards that are outlined within the HIPAA security rule to protect the CIA of electronic PHI. So it can definitely help you get to being HIPAA compliant from a technical perspective, yes.
Great. Actually, a few more have popped in too. So this one, I think, Alan, probably directed at Alan here. From your experience talking with current MFT customers and users, what were the main reasons for adopting GoAnywhere MFT?
Good question. I think that there are probably four main reasons that we've derived from the interviews. I think number one is having a solution which is easy to use. That move away from scripts and have a degree of automation and flexibility in using the tool. Security, I think, is very high up, and in relation to security is compliance. Obviously, regulation is not just about kind of information security, but it's very important. So those two combined, I think. And the fourth one, I think it's that, and I think, Dan mentioned as well in this presentation, it's the freeing up of dev staff, of allowing development staff to go off and do the stuff you really want them to do, rather than kind of admin tools and admin roles and responsibilities, and moving that to the end users themselves and to operational staff. So I think those four main ones, I think.
Excellent. And actually, a couple others here. One that we're getting a lot more. I'll probably pitch this one up to Dan. Can you run in the cloud, for example, AWS?
Yes, so you can definitely spin up your AMIs or virtual machines up in AWS as well as Azure to deploy GoAnywhere up in the cloud. We have done some extensive testing here within AWS and Azure and had successful deployments of GoAnywhere up in the cloud environment. Absolutely.
Excellent. And then, does your product support IBM mainframe-based files?
Yes, if you have access to getting to the IBMI files from a network and permissions perspective, then yes. I don't know if that answers the question, but yeah.
And any of those questions, if you have, yeah, I was going to say, if you have really specific use cases or you want to see a one-on-one demo with your team and someone from the Lenoma team, that's probably the best way to walk through that. Dan can go into more detail and provide kind of feedback as we go through the process. I will leave that open for another minute here, but while we wait for any other questions, a couple next potential steps if you are interested. We do have the demo from Dan or members of the Lenoma team. You can access that on the GoAnywhere website as listed above. We do have an ROI calculator that allows you to plug in your specific requirements and get an output there just to give you a general idea of what kind of return you can expect. And then if you want further details on the ROI study produced by Alan and his team, that too can be accessed on the GoAnywhere website. A couple more quick questions, Dan. Can we get the clients who are using your products? Can we get the client? Oh, sure. Yep, so that you can access kind of anyone that's using, we have a number of reviews, a number of case studies, all of that stuff is listed on our website. Should you need any referrals or things like that when you're looking at the product, that is something we can address too. And do you need to install software on the client machines to make it work? Dan, I'll probably let you jump in on that one.
Yeah. Yep. No, I just answered that via text, but no, you do not. I just need to have that network permission access to any client or any network resource on your network.
Great. And I'll leave this slide up here for the last couple seconds here. These are the best ways to get in touch with anyone of the Lenomo sales team and talk more specifically about the GoAnywhere product. You will receive an email, a follow-up email shortly here that will have a link to the recording, a couple other resources, and additional ways to get in touch with us just to make it easy. But feel free, if you're itching right now, here's the best way via phone, email, or as always, you can jump on the GoAnywhere website and use our chat functionality to be connected to someone live right away. That ends our presentation today. Again, we thank you for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. Hopefully you learned a few things here. If you have any other questions, feel free to follow up with us, and enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you all.